If you ever hear someone sit down at your fire without asking, don't wait around like I did. I know how that sounds. Dramatic, paranoid, maybe even stupid. But I swear to you, I'd give anything to go back and walk away the second I heard that first voice in the trees. I should have gone home when I first heard it. I should have taken the hint, but I didn't. And that's the only reason I'm even telling this story. Because if I vanish before finishing this, someone else needs to know. He sat by my campfire, but he wasn't alone. At first, I thought it was just some hiker, or maybe a hunter. Someone passing through the woods who'd caught sight of the smoke and decided to join. But when you're out there, alone in the middle of nowhere, there's something wrong about a man stepping out of the dark like he already belongs in your circle of light. Something wrong about him speaking like the night was his, and you were the one trespassing. The firelight made his face look human, but the way he moved, the way he spoke, nothing about him felt right. And when I realized there was someone else standing just beyond the glow, someone I couldn't see but could feel, watching, waiting, that's when I knew I was in trouble. You don't forget a stare like that. Eyes that don't look at you, but through you. Eyes that don't blink, don't flinch, don't show a single spark of warmth. It's like staring into the bottom of a well and realizing something is staring back. I don't know if they were men, or something wearing the shape of men. I don't know if they wanted to rob me, kill me, or drag me into some place I was never meant to go. All I know is that once they found me, once they sat at my fire, I was marked. And here's the part that should terrify you. I only escaped because I ran. Not because I was brave, not because I was smart. Just because instinct took over. And even now, years later, when I hear a branch snap in the woods, or a low whistle outside my window, I wonder if they ever really stopped following. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. If you ever hear a voice out in the dark, if someone steps into your firelight without an invitation, don't sit still, don't play polite, leave. Because the longer you wait, the harder it is to get away. And now, I need to tell you how it started. I should probably start at the beginning, before everything went wrong. Back when it was still just another summer evening, and I thought a night in the woods would be the kind of reset I needed. My name's Ryan. I'd just wrapped up a brutal week at work. Long hours, short tempers, nothing but concrete and noise. I figured I deserved a break. And for me, that's always meant the woods. I grew up with trees for a backyard, rivers for sidewalks, and the smell of pine needles soaking into every hoodie I ever owned. Some people unwind at bars. I go where the bugs outnumber the people. So, that night, I packed a small bag. Tent, sleeping bag, lighter, a few snacks, and a six-pack I'd been saving. Nothing fancy, no big hiking trip, just a one-night getaway, a little nostalgia trip back into the forest behind my parents' place. The air was heavy with the kind of summer heat that sticks to your skin, but once I crossed the tree line, it cooled into something softer. Shade wrapped around me, broken only by strips of golden sunlight dripping through the branches. The deeper I went, the quieter the world became. No cars, no phones buzzing. Just me, the crunch of boots on dry leaves, and that earthy smell that makes you feel like the ground itself is breathing. After about an hour, I found a small clearing that looked good enough. Flat ground, a few rocks for a fire ring, and a big maple leaning just far enough to hang a lantern from. I dumped my pack, stretched my shoulders, and started setting up camp. There's something about pitching a tent and striking a match in the middle of nowhere that makes you feel, I don't know, competent. Like a caveman with brand-name gear. When the fire finally caught, the crackle of burning twigs filled the space, and orange light danced up the trees like they were keeping watch. I leaned back on a log, cracked open a beer, and let the warmth of the fire do its thing. For the first time all week I felt calm. My muscles loosened. My head stopped buzzing. The world was simple again. Me, fire, stars. That's when the sarcasm kicked in. My friends say horror movies start this way. Guess they were right. I actually laughed when I said it out loud. Because really, what was I doing? Middle of the woods, no cell service, all alone with a fire that could be seen for miles. If anyone wanted to creep up on me, I was practically inviting them with neon lights and marshmallows. Still, it didn't bother me. I'd done this plenty of times before, and nothing bad had ever happened. This was my woods. I knew the deer trails, the bend in the creek, the fallen oak that looked like a giant doorway. These trees had been standing longer than I'd been alive, and I'd grown up treating them like neighbors. Familiarity breeds safety. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I roasted the first marshmallow, letting it char on the outside before pulling it apart with graham crackers. Sticky, sweet, and messy enough to make me feel like a kid again. It was the perfect ending to a perfect little setup. The kind of night where you convince yourself you're untouchable, that the outside world can't get to you here. And maybe that's why I didn't notice right away when the woods around me shifted. It wasn't dramatic, just subtle enough to make me wonder if I'd imagined it. The fire popped, sparks rising, the trees creaked, stretching their weight. But beneath all of that, beneath the background noise of nature doing what it does, I thought I caught something else. A sound that didn't belong. Low, faint, almost like whistling. I froze, marshmallow half-eaten in my hand, eyes scanning the tree line. The firelight only reached so far. Beyond that, shadows swallowed everything whole. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just wind. Just imagination. But deep down, something cold uncurled in my stomach. Because I didn't realize it yet. But I had chosen the wrong spot. The first time I heard it, I thought it was just the wind. A faint rise and fall, threading between the branches like air slipping through a crack. But the longer I listened, the more I realized the rhythm was wrong. Too steady, too deliberate. It sounded like whistling. Not a cheerful tune, not even a melody. Just fragments of notes strung together, broken off halfway through like someone testing their breath. It came from somewhere out past the fire's glow, but every time I tilted my head to lock onto the direction, it seemed to slide away. Left, right, behind me. Always just out of reach. The fire crackled at my side, comforting and bright, but every flicker of flame carved deeper shadows into the tree line. I stared so long into the dark that shapes began to form on their own. A man leaning against a trunk, a figure crouched low to the ground. But when I blinked, the shadows collapsed back into nothing. The whistling shifted, lower, closer, and then became something else entirely. Words, mutters, a man's voice, rough and muffled, speaking too soft for me to catch the meaning. The syllables rolled through the trees in a way that didn't make sense, echoing where they shouldn't. It was like the forest itself was repeating them back to me, bouncing them from every direction. That's when the unease turned into fear. I gripped the stick I'd used for marshmallows like it was a weapon, the sugary end still crusted in blackened sugar. My heart was thudding so loud I could swear it was louder than the fire. I didn't want to say anything, didn't want to let whoever or whatever it was know exactly where I was. But the silence between mutters became unbearable, and my mouth opened before my brain could stop it. Hello? Just one word. The second it left my mouth, the voice stopped. Instantly. The forest fell dead quiet, so much so that I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. No mutters, no wind, no insects. Nothing. And that silence was worse than the voice. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how exposed I was, sitting in a little circle of firelight surrounded by a wall of black. I tried to convince myself it was just some hunter, or maybe a hiker who'd gotten lost. Maybe they heard me and decided not to bother me. Maybe they left. But deep down, I knew they hadn't left. I could feel it. The weight of unseen eyes pressing against me from the tree line, patient and still, like a predator waiting for me to look away first. The longer I sat there, the more my skin prickled with the sensation that something was moving just beyond my sight. Each snap of a twig, each groan of the branches sounded deliberate. My nerves buzzed like static. I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself it wasn't worth ruining the whole night, that I could just move camp, set up somewhere else, and pretend it never happened. So that's exactly what I did. I packed up fast, shoving things into my bag without caring if they were folded or not. The fire hissed as I kicked dirt over it, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement at the very edge of the light. Just a shoulder, a glimpse of pale skin before it vanished into shadow. My stomach lurched. I didn't wait to confirm. With the sun sinking lower and the woods closing in, I forced myself deeper into the trees, heart pounding in my throat. Every step crunched louder than it should have, like I was signaling my path to anyone who cared to listen. I walked faster, eyes darting to every flicker in the dark, convinced I'd see someone trailing just far enough behind to vanish when I turned. 15 minutes felt like an hour, but eventually, I found another spot. It wasn't much, just a cluster of trees with enough space to squeeze a tent between them, but it would have to do. I told myself it was safer, hidden. The air was cooler here, the shadows thicker, but at least I was away from that clearing. By the time I had the tent up, the last traces of daylight had bled from the sky. The woods around me had gone from green to gray, then gray to black. Every sound was sharper, clearer, the crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves, and each one made my pulse skip. I lit a smaller fire this time, careful to keep it low. The flames licked at the sticks, but the circle of light was weaker, barely pushing back against the dark. I sat close, hugging the warmth, trying to convince myself it was enough. To calm my nerves, I dug out another marshmallow, stabbed it on the end of the stick, and held it above the flame. The sugar blistered. The smell sweet and familiar. I forced myself to smile. To pretend this was just another night in the woods, no different from any other. But my hands shook, and the marshmallow sagged into the fire before I could pull it back. And even as I laughed it off, I kept glancing at the trees, because I couldn't shake the feeling that the voice hadn't gone anywhere at all. I told myself I was overreacting, that the voices, the whistling, the silence, all of it could be explained away if I just stopped feeding into my own paranoia. A couple beers, a long day, shadows playing tricks. That's all it was. At least, that's what I kept repeating. But then, I heard it. A crunch. Deliberate, heavy, like a boot pressing down on brittle wood. This wasn't a squirrel darting through the leaves, wasn't the forest sighing. This was someone moving. Before I could even stand, he stepped into the glow of the fire. A man. Just a man. He moved slowly, almost lazily, as though he'd been circling for a while and finally decided to reveal himself. His clothes were plain. Dark jacket, work pants, boots caked in dirt. But they were wrong somehow. Out of time, maybe. The jacket looked decades old. Seams frayed, fabric dulled with age. He didn't ask. He didn't say a word at first. He just walked over and sat down on the opposite log, like he had every right to be there. Like it wasn't my fire at all. He acted like he belonged there. Like it was his fire, not mine. The flames painted his face in flickering orange and black, but somehow the light didn't quite touch him the way it should have. His features stayed muted, blurred, like I was looking at a memory of a person instead of the real thing. His eyes never lifted to meet mine. They stayed on the fire, unblinking. I cleared my throat, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. Hey, you lost or something? He rubbed his hand slowly over the heat, skin pale and thin, almost translucent where the light caught it. Then, after a long silence, he answered. No. That was it. Just that one word, flat and final. The sound of it sat wrong in my ears. His voice wasn't raspy, wasn't deep. It was just empty, like it had no weight. I tried again, shifting uneasily on my log. Didn't mean to spook me then. Thought I was alone out here. Must have been someone else, he said. He still didn't look up. I felt my chest tighten. Someone else? He didn't explain, just tilted his head as if listening to something deeper in the woods, the faintest curl of a smile flickering at the corner of his mouth before disappearing again. The fire popped. Sparks leapt up and fizzled in the dark. I wanted to get up, to tell him to leave, but something about the way he sat, calm, immovable, made it feel impossible. Like the moment I broke the fragile balance, something worse would happen. So instead, I played along. You, camping out here too? No. Each answer was clipped, stripped of detail. His tone made it clear that pressing him wouldn't get me anywhere. Still, the silence that followed pressed heavier than the words. I noticed then that he wasn't dressed for camping. No backpack, no gear. Nothing that suggested he'd walked out here with a purpose. He looked like someone who had just materialized out of the dark. My throat was dry. I took a swig from the beer can beside me just for something to do with my hands. The hiss of carbonation sounded absurdly loud in the quiet. "You hungry? Got some marshmallows." He didn't respond. The firelight flickered across his skin, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw his lips moving, whispering something too quiet to hear. My pulse hammered. I leaned closer without meaning to. "What did you say?" His eyes finally lifted, but not to me. Not exactly. They darted just past me, as though someone were standing directly at my side. Someone I couldn't see, and he smiled. Cold shot through me, sharp enough to steal the breath from my lungs. I whipped my head around, expecting, hoping to see another camper, a late-night hiker, anyone. But there was nothing, just the dark trees swallowing the light. When I turned back, he was still watching that empty space, lips parted slightly as if in conversation. I forced a laugh, brittle and cracking. "Okay, man, this is getting weird." Finally, his gaze slid to me, just for a second, and I almost wished it hadn't. His eyes were too dark, too deep, like looking into the hollow of a tree that stretched farther than it should. No glint of reflection, no moisture, nothing human in them at all. The weight of that look pinned me where I sat. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. It was only when he looked back at the fire that I gasped, the sound ragged and desperate in the still night. I wanted to run. Every nerve in me screamed to bolt into the woods, to put as much distance between us as possible. But my legs wouldn't obey. The heat of the fire was the only thing tethering me to reality, keeping me from unraveling completely. So I sat. He sat. The fire hissed and cracked, and then, snap. A sharp crack split the silence, clear as a gunshot, a stick breaking under weight. Both of us turned toward the sound, only, when his head tilted, that smile spread wider, like he'd been waiting for it all along. That crack of the branch still echoes in my head. It was sharp, deliberate, the kind of sound that doesn't happen unless something heavy is moving exactly where it shouldn't be. I froze, half turning toward the trees. My eyes searched the dark, desperate for something. An animal, a stray camper, anything to explain it. But the fire's glow ended just a few feet out, and beyond that, the black swallowed everything whole. The man across from me didn't flinch. He didn't look startled, didn't even look curious. He just smiled at the fire, lips twitching like the sound was some private joke only he understood. And then he stopped moving altogether. No shifting on the log, no fidgeting, no blinking. Just stillness. His eyes lifted again, not toward me this time, but toward the exact place the sound had come from. His gaze sharpened, unblinking, as if greeting an old friend. The fire popped, and in that split-second flare, I thought I saw it. Another shape deeper in the tree line. Taller, broader. Something that leaned just close enough for the light to catch two pale points glinting like wet stone. Eyes. Two sets now. One at the fire. One just beyond it. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Who's there?" Even though I already knew I didn't want the answer. The trees gave nothing back. No rustle, no movement. Just silence. The kind that presses down until you can hear your own pulse in your skull. The man finally broke it. Not with words, but with a laugh. A low, hollow sound that rasped out of him like dry leaves being crushed underfoot. It wasn't loud, but in that silence it might as well have been a thunderclap. I wanted to stand, to run, to scream, but my body wouldn't obey. I was rooted to that log, trembling, every muscle locked tight. The thing in the shadows took a step closer. Not enough to emerge, not enough to reveal itself, but just enough that the firelight caught the faint outline of shoulders. Too wide, too wrong. My voice cracked when I tried again. "What do you want?" The man by the fire finally looked straight at me, and his face, God, his face wasn't right anymore. His expression had emptied out, all trace of that faint smile gone. His mouth hung slightly open, eyes locked on mine, and there was nothing human in them now. Just a dull, endless black. That stare pinned me like an insect under glass. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world shrank to firelight and shadows, to those two sets of eyes watching me from different sides. And then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, he said, "You shouldn't have lit the fire." A chill ran through me so hard my teeth clacked together. I stumbled backward off the log, dirt clinging to my palms as I hit the ground. The second pair of eyes flickered higher in the trees now, shifting left, then right. Like it wasn't walking but gliding, circling. The man never turned to follow it. He just kept watching me, his head tilting slowly, unnaturally, until his neck bent farther than it should have. Bones shouldn't bend like that. Something cracked in me then. Instinct overruled paralysis. I scrambled to my feet and bolted into the woods, branches whipping against my arms, firelight vanishing behind me. The forest swallowed me whole. Every sound amplified, the crunch of my boots on dead leaves, the thunder of my heartbeat, the ragged gasps tearing out of my throat. But beneath all of it, I heard them. Two sets of footsteps. One heavy, steady, keeping pace just behind me, and another lighter, scattered, darting ahead in the dark where no path existed. They weren't chasing me. They were hurting me. I tripped on a root and barely caught myself, palms stinging from the impact. When I looked up, I swore I saw those same eyes ahead of me, gleaming like coals before winking out. I ran harder, lungs screaming, tears blurring my vision. The trees twisted together, every direction the same. No trail, no landmarks, just endless black trunks stretching forever. And all the while, I couldn't shake the sound. Not the crunch of leaves behind me, not the whisper of something moving where it shouldn't, but something worse, the whistling. That same broken tune from earlier, threading between the trees, rising and falling in time with my footsteps. Sometimes to my left, sometimes to my right, sometimes right at my ear. It wasn't one voice anymore. It was two. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My body moved on raw panic, lungs tearing, legs burning, every step fueled by the single desperate thought, get out, get out, get out. The forest seemed endless, like it had closed itself around me. And in that chaos, one final realization hit me like ice water. All this time, I thought I was running from two men. But the truth was worse. I've run for my life before, chased by dogs as a kid, sprinting from fights in alleys during college. But nothing felt like this. The woods weren't just chasing me, they were closing in around me. Branches slapped across my face, tore at my arms, snapped against my legs as if the forest itself wanted to slow me down. My lungs burned raw, every breath ragged, but I couldn't stop. Not with those footsteps behind me. They weren't steady anymore. They pounded, then paused. They scraped, then galloped. Sometimes they were far back, other times they exploded right at my heels. I could never predict where they'd come from next. And over all of it, over the hammer of my heart and the tearing of leaves, was that whisper. At first I thought it was just one voice, The same muttering I'd heard by the first campfire, low and indistinct. But now, it overlapped. Two voices twining together, sometimes in unison, sometimes breaking apart, speaking words I couldn't understand. A language stretched too thin, too sharp, like broken glass pressed against the inside of my ears. And then came the worst part. The second presence. It wasn't following normal rules. I'd hear it behind me, heavy steps, snapping branches, and then, in the same second, the exact same sound erupted off to my left. Too close. Impossibly close. Once, I swear I saw it ahead of me just for a blink. A tall figure gliding between the trees, its pale face jerking toward me before winking out like static on a broken screen. That's when I realized I wasn't outrunning it. It was everywhere. The laughter came next. At first, it was just a short chuckle behind me, like the man at the fire had followed. But then it stretched, warped, twisting into something metallic, not quite human. It came from the left, then the right, then above, spilling down from the treetops as if the branches themselves were laughing at me. I stumbled, nearly went down, but caught myself on a trunk slick with moss. My hands left streaks on the bark, as though even the trees were rotting under my touch. And then, light. A flicker, faint and white, flashing between the trees ahead. I thought it was a flashlight, a sign of another camper, a rescuer maybe. My chest lifted with the first sliver of hope I'd felt since running. But then it flickered again. Too high, too low, too fast. Like lightning trapped in the woods, darting from trunk to trunk. Never quite steady, never quite natural. Every time I blinked, it moved. And every time it vanished, the whispers swelled louder. I crashed forward anyway, desperate, because the alternative was unthinkable. The ground beneath me sloped, my boots sliding on loose dirt. I stumbled, arms pinwheeling, and in that blur of movement I felt it. A hand. Cold fingers brushing my shoulder. My stomach flipped. I screamed, a raw animal sound, and threw myself forward harder. There are rules out here, I panted, half out loud, half in my head. And I broke one. I don't even know where the thought came from. Maybe some memory, some warning buried deep in childhood. But it pulsed in my skull with every step. Don't light the fire. Don't answer the voice. Don't run once they see you. And I'd done all three. I burst through a tangle of brush, thorns slicing across my arms. Blood warmed my skin, but I didn't care. I just needed distance. Behind me, the whispers crescendoed, breaking into jagged syllables that almost formed words. Almost. The forest blurred, black streaks rushing past. My vision tunneled, every ounce of energy left in me focused on forward motion. My lungs felt shredded. My throat burned like glass. My legs were lead, ready to give out. And then, all at once, the ground leveled. The trees thinned. A pale strip of gray opened ahead, cutting through the dark like a lifeline. The road. I nearly collapsed right there. Relief shot through me so hard my knees buckled, but instinct shoved me onward. I broke free of the last line of trees and stumbled onto gravel, the world opening into something wide, empty, and blessedly. I collapsed to my hands and knees, gasping, sucking air like I'd been drowning. Behind me, the woods loomed, black and endless. I expected them to follow me out, to drag themselves into the open, but they didn't. The whispers cut off the instant my feet hit the road. The laughter died. Even the wind stopped. It was like a wall had slammed down between me and them. For a long moment, I just crouched there on the asphalt, shivering, bleeding, trying to convince myself I was alive. My heart rattled in my chest like it wanted out. My eyes never left that tree line. And I swear to you, swear on everything I love, just before I turned away, I saw it. Two figures standing side by side in the black. One tall, one narrow. Both watching. Not moving. Not leaving. Just waiting. By the time I stumbled through my parents' front door, I must have looked like a ghost myself. bleeding arms, dirt-caked clothes, eyes wide and wild. My mother screamed. My father grabbed the phone. I barely remember blurting the words, "Someone's out there, someone followed me," before collapsing against the kitchen counter. The police came fast. Too fast, almost. It was as if they'd been waiting for a call like mine. 2 cars in the driveway, flashlights cutting across the lawn. They asked me to show them where it happened, and though my legs shook like jelly, I agreed. I needed someone else to see it, to prove I wasn't insane. We retraced my steps through the woods, the beams of their flashlights swinging wide across the trees. Daylight had started bleeding into the sky by then, a pale gray glow that should have been comforting. But the woods looked wrong in that half-light. Shadows too long, trunks too close together. When we reached the spot, my stomach dropped. Nothing. The fire pit I'd built? Gone. Not scattered, not kicked over. Gone. No ash, no scorched wood, not even a patch of dirt to show flames had been there hours before. The log where the man sat was bare, smooth, as if no weight had ever pressed into it. My tent, my chair, vanished. Every trace of me erased. The officers split up, combing the area. I followed one, whispering, "They were here. I saw them. I swear to God they were here." He swept his light across the ground, frowning. Then he crouched. "You said you camped here?" "Yes," I snapped. He shook his head slowly. "Son, there hasn't been a camp here in years. Look at this ground. No footprints, no disturbance. Even the leaves are undisturbed." He was right. The forest floor was pristine. No trampled paths, no broken branches, no overturned dirt. It was as though the woods had swallowed every sign of me whole. We went deeper, to the first clearing I'd chosen. Same thing. Empty. Silent. Too clean. I remember one of the officers muttering to the other, just barely loud enough for me to catch. Same as last time. I wanted to demand what he meant. Last time? But when I turned, he was already walking off, flashlight slicing between the trees like nothing had been said. By morning, the search wrapped up. No trespassers, no footprints, no evidence of a second presence. Their official report said, possible wild animal encounter, but they didn't look convinced of their own words. And me? I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Because this wasn't just predators in the woods. Predators leave tracks. Predators take food. Predators don't erase fire pits. Whatever I'd sat beside wasn't human. That night, as the sun finally burned high over the tree line, I sat in my childhood bedroom staring out the window at the woods. They looked so normal in daylight. Birds singing, branches swaying. The kind of place I'd played in as a kid without a second thought. But I couldn't unsee it. 2 figures waiting just beyond the tree line. 2 sets of eyes in the dark. And the worst part is, sometimes I still hear them. Not always. Not every night. But every now and then, when I'm out in the woods with friends or sitting alone by a fire, I'll catch it. A voice. A whistle. A laugh that isn't a laugh. And the silence that follows. Like they're reminding me I broke the rules once, and they're patient enough to wait until I break them again. If you've stuck with me this far, you probably think I'm crazy. Maybe you're right. But I can't shake the feeling that if I don't tell this, if I don't put it somewhere outside of my own head, they'll win. They'll wait me out. So listen carefully, because this is the only advice I can give you. If you ever hear someone sit down at your fire without asking, don't wait around like I did. Don't try to talk to them. Don't even look at them. Get up. Leave. No second chances. That silence you'll hear after they cut off their voice, it's not a gift. It's not safety. It's permission. Permission for them to step closer. And they will. I can't tell you what they are. I still don't know. I don't even know if the one who sat across from me was ever human at all. Maybe once, maybe never. But I know this. There's always more than one. Sometimes I wonder if they're bound to the fire itself, like moths, or worse, like keepers of rules older than we remember. I lit a flame where I shouldn't have. I answered a voice I shouldn't have. I broke the order of things and they came. And they didn't forget me. Because every so often, late at night, when I'm home alone, I'll hear it again. A low whistle carried on no wind. The creak of weight settling, as though someone just sat down on a chair that isn't there. Once, just last month, I opened my back door in the morning and found it. A single boot print, pressed deep into the mud. No trail leading to it. No trail leading away. Just one mark, facing the house, facing me. I don't camp anymore. Not in those woods. Not anywhere near a fire. But maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe once you see them, once you sit by their fire, you never really leave. So I'll ask you this, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. Have you ever heard someone at your fire when no one should have been there? Have you ever felt the silence press against your ears right after a voice cuts out? Tell me in the comments if you have. Tell me. Because I don't think I was there first. And I know I won't be there last. The only question that keeps me awake now, the one I can't shake no matter how hard I try, is this. What happens when they decide not to leave?